First, you turn on the time circuits. This one tells you where you're going. This one tells you where you are. This one tells you where you were. You input your destination on this keypad. Say you want to see the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Or witness the birth of Christ? Here's a red letter date in the history of science. November 5th, 1955. Yes, of course. November 5th, 1955. That was the day I invented time travel. I remember it vividly. I was standing on the edge of my toilet, hanging a clock. The porcelain was wet. I slipped, hit my head on the sink, and when I came to, I had a revelation. A vision. A picture in my head. A picture of this. This is what makes time travel possible. The flux capacitor. It's taking me nearly 30 years and my entire family fortune to realize the vision of that day. My God, has it been that long? Things have certainly changed around here. I remember when this was all farmland as far as the eye could see. Old man Peabody owned all of this. He had this crazy idea about breeding pine trees. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Say Report Jr., a podcast you should be listening to, subscribe to, and downloading every single week. I am one of your hosts, Dale Decker.
I'm your other host, Zach Sarwick, and I gotta say, that's a bad Rick and Morty episode you just described.
Fuck you.
I want you to know, I had two jokes as I realized what you were doing. I was like, do I go Rick and Morty, or I just pretend to have no idea what you're saying? Because the other option was to be like, I'm Zach, and I'm confused. What was that? Was that like Jaws or something? What are we doing?
Yeah, I was quoting the well-known time travel sequel of Jaws.
The well-known time travel documentary.
The documentary of Jaws. That was a really terrible reading that I just did of the scene where Doc Brown remembers his day of figuring out what the time flux capacitor.
Kind of forgot I was standing on the toilet with the porcelain and slipped and cracked my head.
Yep.
Oh,
today,
man.
What's today's date, Zach?
It's
real
it is
easy.
V for Vendetta Day. Why?
Well, no,
Is
it's
there
not. It's also...
It is.
Well,
It's
it
November
is,
5th.
but it's not.
It's the most important movie to involve November 5th ever.
You're wrong. It's November 5th in the sense of Back to the Future, and today is the day that time travel was invented.
But
so,
what was culturally more
fuck you.
important?
What?
Back to the Future or V for Vendetta?
I've never
'Cause
seen
really,
V for Vendetta.
I want to say
so-
that really, what the Wachowskis did with V for Vendetta cannot be overshadowed by, Christopher Lloyd? Really?
Okay.
He was better in Star Trek 3. It's not a joke. He's actually in Star Trek 3. He's in Klingon. He's fucking magnificent.
That's fine. I can't talk about V for Vendetta because I've never seen it. The movie that brings up November 5th for me will always be Back to the Future.
Well, of course, because it's the more important movie, Dale. That was the joke.
No, I know.
The joke is that
I
Future
know
is,
that.
of course, a better movie than V for Vendetta. That is not even a question.
Listen, I know that.
You can't know that. You haven't seen them. I have. My objective truth.
I knew what you were going for. But there are people who think that V for Vendetta, can't talk, is better than Back to the Future. There are people, I'm sure of it.
And those people are welcome to their opinion, and they should love the things they love, but also they're wrong. So
I should see V for Vendetta, though.
I haven't watched it since it was in theaters, and I'm afraid because it probably doesn't hold up.
Don't give me any. I just have no clue what that movie's about.
Honestly,
other than people
Dale,
wearing masks.
Remember how I said I hadn't seen it since it was in theaters? I couldn't tell you what it's about except...
And Natalie Portman.
And Hugo Weaving in a V for Vendetta mask because it's the V for Vendetta mask.
Oh, man. But yeah, I love Back to the Future. And I literally realized, it's November 5th. Oh, I'm going to open that episode this way.
You know how long it's been since I have watched any of those movies at this point? I really should just buy the trilogy on Blu-ray just so I have it, and I should watch it for the holidays. Thank you for giving me
You're
something to do
welcome.
for Thanksgiving, because that's definitely what I want to do,
You're welcome.
actually.
It should be seen by everyone.
I've seen them all. I've
No, I
seen
know.
three, probably. It's
Was it?
weird, 'cause
Is
I
it
think I've
you?
seen three more than
Is
the
it?
other two.
That makes sense. I actually really like 3. I have funny stories about that. But first, before I get there, you is it you who I always am like, have you seen Back to the Future? Is that you or is that
I
someone
mean,
else?
I have
It
a feeling
could
you
be
just
you.
asked. I have a feeling that's just the third question you ask everybody you meet.
I mean, kind of.
Hi, I'm Dale. What's your name? How's your day? Have you seen Back to the Future?
This is fair. This is fair. Um, what's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Have you heard
Have
the
you-
good word of Doc Brown today?
Have you heard? Who's better, Einstein or Copernicus? No, not the person. No. You misunderstood. I'm talking about the dogs. The well-known dogs
Do
of
you
Doc
think-
Brown.
Do you think we could get into a real good timeline discussion of whether or not 2 really holds up as well as everyone says it does? Because I've heard
What?
some theories
What?
otherwise.
What? Don't break my head. Please don't break my head. I need you to not break my head right now. Because 2 is incredible.
No, 2 is incredible and it's probably perfect, and I just refuse to sit down and find out otherwise. It's another reason I've been afraid to sit down and watch them, because I have since heard people talk about the possibility that the math doesn't quite add up to that movie,
Well-
and I refuse to go back and find out.
And it's probably post Endgame where people are like, this is
No,
how
no.
time
This
travel
was-
is.
this
And
is
it's like,
years in
no,
the
you're wrong.
This actually has nothing to do with Endgame.
Good.
Like, I
Thank
think
God.
Endgame is doing its own thing. Here's the thing. I have less problem with the time travel shenanigans in Endgame, mostly because the second they started talking about it, I went, oh, this is word salad, so that we just don't think about it too hard. That's all I need. I'm someone who doesn't care about time travel and Looper. So, like, I'm fine with
That's fine. No,
I'm fine with shitty time travel and multiverses. I'm fine with that. No, this is something I had heard like many years ago. Someone said like one thing about the timeline of Back to the Future 2, and I refuse to go back and find out if they're right because I don't want to
See,
break that movie for me.
now I want to know what what it is the person said, but I'm gonna be so biased.
Yeah, I just need to know. So I just need to check. Because there's something about like when they're going at some point after they go back to the 50s with old Biff and come back, that theoretically something they changed in that 50s timeline with old Biff with them should have made going back to the future they went to impossible because of the things they had already changed. I don't remember. I have to also go back and find out the exact wording they had, but it had something to do with that exact part of the movie. After they had already gone back once and old Biff is with them and then gone back forward again, somewhere in there that timeline shouldn't add up to how that worked out the way it did, because like whatever timeline they set up should have disintegrated and a different one should have been set up in its place or something. But I don't know yet. I have to go back and watch to find out.
All right, you also need to maybe send me that. I don't know, because without knowing exactly what they're saying, I can't.
There's a lot of lines and charts involved is the thing. And it really ruins the best T-shirt I ever saw in the world of graphic, simplified T-shirts that went out, like minimalist T-shirts that existed in the early 2010s. One of the best ones is a description of the 3 Back to the Future films.
Oh,
by
I love them.
line.
By
lines.
lines.
It's just a line and the loop, and then the double loop, and then the loop all the way back to 18 whatever.
You saw that as a shirt?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm sure I saw it as a graphic, and then someone was like, I'm going to steal that and put it on a T-shirt. Because I also remember, like, a T-shirt being sold, but it was probably on some shitty, like, black market website. People steal other art.
I saw that image, like, years and years ago, and I was like, oh my god, this is my favorite. This is one of my. I was real into minimalist posters in college, and
we all were. Everybody
were.
Gets into,
I know.
Everybody likes that Reservoir Dogs.
And I'm still in
where
it.
Everybody's a Crayola crayon.
Yeah.
We all know.
And I'm still in it. Honestly, I'm still in the minimalist poster game. But I was so into it. But I saw that specific one that you were talking about, and I want that on a shirt so bad. I'm currently wearing a Back to the Future shirt because I was like, I need to, because I am going to talk about Back to the Future on this episode. But I would love that shirt. I didn't know they would make it, and I'm sure I could make it myself, but I also don't want to steal someone's design.
And like I said, I'm sure the T-shirt that I saw for sale was just wholesale ripped. Like, I'm sure that image went around forever on the internet,
it was
like they
probably a
do.
red
And
bubble.
someone,
It was probably a red bubble sale.
Someone just straight up took that image. It was like, I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt and I'm gonna sell it.
Yeah.
But you know what? Okay, hold on. How much more do you have to say about Back to the Future? Because I actually have a really good crazy scientist segue to the thing I want to talk about. So get everything out and I'll do it.
Two more things is that, because you mentioned the third one, right? In school, my film 116, my intro to film class, the first class, my teacher was like, I'm going to go around the room and ask everybody what their favorite movie is. To which I said, Back to the Future. And he said, which one? To which I said, well, if I really needed to pick, I would probably say 2. And now I definitely would say 2. And then I said, but honestly, I love the trilogy as a whole. I can't have one and not the others.
I love that. I love that you have the same reaction I do, just to say like scream.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I know.
I love. Oh God, I love it. Anyway, continue.
But to which he said, even the third one? And in front of all these freshmen, I was like, yes, especially the third one. It's a Western. And it was just like a really nice, this is our relationship in this class, isn't it? Isn't it, Professor?
It's got sci-fi, it's got Western, it's got a good romantic arc for a character that deserves it.
Yep.
Doc Brown, the original Captain America, Endgame.
Nice. Nice. But it was just I was like, okay, that gave me everything I needed to know going into this class, and then proceeded to be a great class, and I proceeded to be the only person who understood 400 blows. Or, well, one of the only people in my class who understand 400 blows.
The only thing I remember from 400 blows is the 20 minutes I was awake where that kid is running mid-frame because, hey, can't you tell he can't escape from the frame? That's why he's in the middle of it.
End of the movie?
Oh, yeah, no, I slept through the rest of it. It was an 8 o'clock film class. Who does an 8 o'clock film class?
Hey, I had 8 o'clock film class, too. I fell asleep during Citizen Kane and Apocalypse Now.
Dale, I just had sorry, hold on. Before I move on, we're going to talk about this in deep later. By the way, almost the entire Back to the Future trilogy is encapsulated in Endgame. I just want to say this. I just thought of it, and I realized it's the truth. They go back in time, and then they go back in time and fuck with future time, and then Captain America goes back in time and lives out his whole life in the past. It's all in there.
It's probably one of my other problems with Endgame. So thanks, Zach, for opening that wound.
That it's a worse version of Back to the Future. Yeah.
That they tried to basically say it.
Anyway,
the other funny thing. Hold on.
Okay.
The other funny thing about Back to the Future. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It's fine because the thing is, my segue works no matter when we want to stop talking, so it's fine.
I know. I also need to talk about Jojo Rabbit at some point during this episode.
Oh yeah, no, we'll get to that too. Don't worry about it.
The other I have other good Back to the Future stories. I could talk about how I saw Christopher Lloyd and Tom Wilson in New Orleans with Devin talk and all of that. I could talk about all these other Back to the Future things. But real quick, because we were talking about posters and talking about specifically posters that I wanted and were able to get, I went to Barcelona at the beginning of last year. Or it might have been last year. I don't remember when, but I went to Barcelona, and in Barcelona there was a poster shop that had the Back to the Future, these 3 Back to the Future posters, which it's 1, 2, and 3, and it's a buildable poster pretty much, so you put all 3 of them together. It builds the DeLorean. And it's the DeLorean from 1, and then the DeLorean from 2, and then the DeLorean from 3.
Right, the front, middle, and back. I think I've seen those
the front,
before.
middle, and back. And I was like, oh my god, I've never seen this poster in person before. Oh my god, there are other posters in the shop that I've never seen in person before, but I want. So I was like, Mom, I need to buy these. It's weird that I'm in Spain. It's weird, but I love this. And I love the fact that I am in Spain about to buy a Back to the Future set of posters.
This might be a dumb question, but were those posters in English or Spanish?
They were in Spanish. They were English. They were in English, I believe.
That actually makes it weirder.
Yeah,
I was about to say, like, if they were in Spanish, I'd be like, no, it's fine. That's just the international poster for these movies. Nope.
I actually have to look at them again because no, I'm almost positive they're in English.
I wish I knew what Back to the Future translated to in Spanish, because I would say it, but I'm not going to insult the Spanish people by trying.
Fair. If it was in Spanish, I also equally would have been excited
Oh,
and been
no,
like,
that
I
would have
need
been
this.
also awesome. I'm not saying
yeah,
it's a reason not to buy them. I just think it makes more sense.
But so my mom and I go into this Spanish store that's just posters. It's just a poster store, which, like, we should have those in America because I mean, sure we do.
Newberry Comics was just a poster store for me for a while.
Yeah, but it's like nothing else. Just
they were
posters.
all Nirvana posters.
Just nothing else. Like, even there were, you know how like you can riffle through albums and stuff at album stores and whatnot, record stores.
Yes.
There were posters like that in like crates. And I'm like, this is incredible. And then they were on the wall. It was one of the coolest stores I have been into. And we're at the counter talking to the guy, and I was like, I've seen these posters, and he's like, they're great. They're amazing. And I'm like, this is a great way to start my Spanish trip. Like, this is
and
then I'm gonna go
Back to the Future posters.
And then I'm about to go across the street and eat some tapas. This is great. And then the rest of the trip was amazing. And yeah, but it started out, like, one of the first things I did was buy fucking Back to the Future posters.
Dale, that's what we call a good omen. That's what that was.
Great. It was great. But yeah, you can segue if you'd like.
Speaking of crazy old scientists with crazy wacky white hair that do crazy things with you, I've been playing The Outer Worlds for 2 weeks, and I've never been happier.
Good.
It's like someone, well, I shouldn't say someone, it's the same people, the Obsidian, the people that made Fallout New Vegas, made a new space sci-fi RPG that's like, hey, what if we made a good new Fallout game? And this game starts with this crazy old scientist running through a derelict ship with these like robot guards shooting at him, and he wakes you up and he's like, no time to explain, get in the car, bitch. And you get into his ship and you go flying out, and he's like, okay, here's the deal. Don't ask any questions. You've been asleep for 70 years. You were supposed to get to our space colony like 50 years ago, and you didn't. Don't worry about it. So I'm gonna unice you, and I'm gonna send you down to a planet, and you're gonna help me take apart the entire government of this entire solar system because it's bad. Okay, deal? Cool. Go down to the planet. And then you land, and you come out of the ship. He's like, now don't worry. There's a space captain there. He's a smuggler. Real Han Solo type, he's going to help you out. Where is he? And you turn around, and that man has been crushed under your escape pod.
Oh, no. That's a great opener.
It's an amazing opener to a video game.
Great. I hope that, like, you see I hope that it's
you do.
Body,
you see legs sticking out from underneath your escape pod.
But I hope it's the shot of the legs and then title card.
I mean, kind of. It doesn't quite go to the title card, but like you look down and you look up, and like a dialogue thing that comes up that's just like, so about your smuggler.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Dale, The Outer Worlds is amazing. Outer Worlds is like if you took Borderlands and Futurama and Fallout and shoved them all into a game together and threw it out there.
That's pretty cool. Because I was very interested, because I had just seen a trailer like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I didn't know about this game, didn't know what it was, and I saw a trailer, I'm like, whoa, this looks interesting, but I can't buy into it yet. So it's good to hear that it's good.
It's very good. It's just like, so the whole idea is that like people went off to colonize a new solar system, but they did it under like a corporate like capitalist thing. Like it wasn't like the government sent people out. It was like a bunch of companies got together and bought the rights to start a colony in another solar system.
Oh my god.
So these like 2 colony ships went out, and one of them got there and one of them didn't. It just like it slipped out of, faster than light travel or
Yeah.
whatever, and it drifted off into space. So you get woken up like 70 years later than you were supposed to, and they're like, yeah, so the other ship showed up, and these companies kind of just ran rampant in this solar system, and spoiler alert, unfettered capitalism is bad. So like
Jesus.
so it's like, again, like Futurama, like MomCorp. Like if MomCorp was made up of like 4 or 5 companies and they all just got to do whatever the hell they wanted because they're in another solar system, no one's going to stop them. So like every planet you go to, there's like little colonies that are all owned by different corporations. So they all have to like say their corporate slogans at you while you talk. So I walk up to this town on the first planet, and there's a guy outside digging graves, and he's like, "Welcome to Spacer's Choice Edgewater."
No.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. He's like, welcome to Edgewater, Spacer's Choice Colony. Spacer's Choice. It's not the best choice, but it's Spacer's
Oh
Choice.
my god.
And it's just like his job is to just dig these graves for these people, and that's how he makes his do. And it's like people have to pay for their graves, and if they don't pay, he digs them back up and throws them down a river or something. Like
Jeez.
it's like, and then like you find from other people, it's like, oh yeah, no, your closest relative pays for that grave fee, and you're like, oh, so you're related to the guy? He's like, no, I don't think you understand. The person relatively close to you when you die pays these fees, not your kin. The person who is in closest proximity to your dead body at the time is now responsible for paying your grave fees. Because if you don't, well, you're considered a derelict for not paying these fees, and also this body gets dug up and thrown down a river. So of course you're going to pay the fees, because who wants to be considered the poor guy who couldn't pay that guy's grave fees?
Oh my god.
Like, this is the world that is set up for you. Like the first hour of this game, it's so good.
No, okay, so gameplay is it like it's like Borderlands?
Gameplay is, well, it's closer to so yes, in Borderlands, in that you're going to go around and kill a bunch of things.
Okay.
Like that is going to happen. There's marauders and outlaws who are all considered bad guys that you're going to end up killing, but you're also going into these towns and talking to people and trying to figure out their disputes, so that you can like the whole reason the crazy old scientist unfroze you and wants to disrupt the system. He's like, the corporate board, so these 4 or 5 companies that all have a boardroom together control everything, and it's terrible. So we're going to take your ship was made up of all the smart people. It's all the good people.
Jeez.
We're going to unfreeze them, and they're going to fix this because this is bad.
Yeah.
So you just happen to be the first person he picked to get out while he was getting shot at.
Oh my god.
It's like, so we have to get all the chemicals and all the stuff together to unfreeze the rest of your ship, so that we can then go in and disrupt the board. So like your job is just to kind of go through, and you're just doing all sorts of like smuggling. Like Firefly stuff is also in here all over the place.
Yeah.
One of the first you get 6 or 7 companions, like Mass Effect style, that hang out on your ship with you, because you just take the ship of the guy you killed when you landed on the planet.
Oh my god.
It's great. I walked up to someone, and they're like looking at the derelict ship, and they're like, "Is this yours?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my ship. I'm definitely this guy you're looking for." It's like,
Yeah.
cool. You're here illegally. It's like, no. I'm not here. I'm an inspector. You see, I'm from the government.
Oh
I'm
my
here to do an inspection. It's a surprise.
Oh my
And that
God.
worked. Because I decided to put all of my early points into talking, so I can lie my way through anything.
Oh my god, that's great.
I was doing like a random side mission on this like space station, and I land, and these people pull up, and they're like, "We're with the corporate board, and your ship has been flagged as being a disruptor, and we're here to take your thing." And I'm like, "Oh, what's this? A self-destruct button? I'm gonna, oops, I accidentally hit that." And the prompt literally says, "Hit random key." So I do that, and the person goes, "What? You're not worth dying for," and they ran away.
Oh my god.
And then I had the whole ship to myself.
Oh my god. That's ridiculous.
So
That's
like
great.
yeah, so like you're going through and you're just like just get through like there's a person on this planet that has some chemicals we need. Go talk to them and we have a contact on this planet. So you do all that, but then while you're there, you just kind of fuck with the rest of the stuff that's
Yeah.
going on around you. It's so good. It's so very good and it's so dumb in places, but it's not like an overly deep game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not kidding when I say the whole kind of point of the game is unfettered capitalism bad. Letting people make their own choices good. That's about as deep as this game gets.
Well,
But like but it's got plenty of like all of the character work around it is just like perfectly balanced to go with that. It's like, okay, cool. I don't need this game to be any deeper than what it is. It's made by these people that made Fallout New Vegas had a very similar premise. It's so funny to see Fallout New Vegas all over this. The very first like major moral choice you make is a direct copy of a mission from Fallout New Vegas, only this time they don't really give you a middle ground.
mm,
They straight up make you decide which of these two colonies do you want to kill. Because like here's what's going to happen if you take the power away from this one, and here's what's going to happen if you take the power away from this one, and that's your only choice. You do not get a middle ground. You don't get to like just run away and not deal with this. You're going to take the power away from one of these two colonies, which means some people might die. Deal with that.
jeez.
Yeah. And it's like
That's
after
heavy.
all this dumb shit you're doing, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a plague in this town, but it's run by the corporation and terrible. Or there's the communists out here. There's the like socialist commune that's like, yeah, it's cool, but the person who runs it used to live in the corporate town and has a grudge with the owner, so she's probably going to be real shitty to the people that come to this town, that come from the town to here. And if they choose not to live with the commune, they're pretty much left in the wild to die. What do you want to do?
Jeez.
And I'm like,
Nah, no.
and all I have is one person with me, someone who is literally Kaylee from Firefly, just back like literal like, oh yeah, backwater planet. She's got a southern accent. She wants to be the engineer on your ship, and she's
Uh-huh.
real looking for some space adventure. You get cool. It's great that she's Indian, but you made Indian Kaylee. Okay, cool. And the only thing she said was, man, sucks to suck. Like she's
Oh
like, man,
my
I don't know
God.
what to do. It's gonna suck if you do this, and it's gonna suck if you do that. I mean, I'm from the town, and I really don't want those people to die. That's the best I got, new captain I've known for all of 2 days.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, thanks, Parvati, helpful. Thank you for that. I'm gonna stare at this computer screen for a while and think about what I'm doing.
Oh my
I
God.
chose the socialists. I felt really bad for the ones that would die in the wild, but I really didn't like these corporations. I decided.
Well, also, I mean, that town has a plague. You don't want that
They have
spreading.
so it's like, well, what the deal was like they had a plague. The way I thought about it was they have a plague, and the way they deal with that plague is they shove people at a sick house, and the people who can pay for it get the medicine for that plague, and the rest don't.
Oh.
It was kind of implied, and I don't know if I was maybe reading into it because I wanted this to be true, but it was kind of implied that the whole natural, hey, we got like medicine from the planet because we actually use the resources here. We don't just rely on the corporations. We might be able to like help those people that are sick. So I was like, cool, yeah, those people. You're not letting plague people die. You're gonna let idiots die out in the wild, but you're not gonna let plague victims die. I think I'm gonna go with you.
Mm.
That was my choice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Damn.
Yeah. Oh God. Oh man. And oh God. All of the companions have their own finishers, and I met a priest, and his finisher is that he turns around with a shotgun, no matter where you are, and no matter what weapon he's wearing, he will turn around out of nowhere with a shotgun and shoot people. But he does it by saying the most badass priest shit.
Oh my
he's like,
God.
he's like, bow in the name of the law. Like,
Incredible.
yeah. It's so dumb. Oh man. That's been the last 2 weeks too. Like I've got like maybe another big planet left, and then I'm gonna be at the end of this game. It's
Wow.
not very long,
Wow.
and I know that and what's weird is there's definitely expansions coming because they've kind of alluded to that. But the company was bought by Microsoft like last year or the year before. So like during one of the last E3s, they made like a big deal. Microsoft's press conference made a big deal out of all the indie companies they bought,
Mhm.
and Obsidian was one of them. But this
Yeah,
game
okay.
came out.
I remember
This
that.
game came out for PS4 and Xbox and PC, and I think it's coming to Switch at some
I think
point.
it's coming to Switch, yeah,
But
because
I
I was
don't
looking at
know.
it on Switch.
But I don't know when the expansions come out if they're only gonna be on like Xbox and PC. Like I don't know. Like nobody knows what happens
I
now that
mean,
like Obsidian put out this game for everyone and then got bought by Microsoft.
it could be like, I don't know, grandfathered in that everybody gets the expansions, or what they'll probably do is kind of, you do what Control did and like, hey, people who have Xbox and PC, you get a special edition, like you get a special,
You get such and such free, or you get
yeah,
them early. You get early
you get
access
early
to them,
access,
or something. Yeah,
or you get missions that nobody else gets.
right.
That's probably, I can see that more happening than, oh, if you have PS4 or Switch, F
You don't get anything
like
extra.
you don't
Right.
get nothing. You don't get anything.
I believe that too. I would believe
Yeah.
that too. That is be like an early access thing because Microsoft is like they don't want to piss too many people off before the next Xbox comes out. But yeah, so
Exactly.
that's the only thing
But
that I'm waiting for now. But
I could totally see it as, hey, we made 3 more planets, and then we also have a 4th planet that only Xbox gets to use.
well, it's so funny because they did this thing. So both Fallout 3 and New Vegas did this because Bethesda had planned that they would do expansions at some point. Is that there are very obvious spots where the expansions go out. So like there's 4 DLCs. I know definitely New Vegas. I can't remember if Fallout 3 did all of this, but New Vegas definitely did this, where it's like, we're going to do 4 expansions. So in the north, south, east, and west, there is a spot that has like a name on the map, but you can't interact with it yet, which means that when the expansion comes out, that's where you go to do that.
Yeah.
And there's like, so far, unless I'm not as far into this game as I think I am, there's like 2 or 3, like I've gone to moons of planets, but not the planets themselves. Like there's 2 or 3 things on the map that still aren't like accessible, and nothing's come up to interact with those yet.
Well,
So
it's
like I would
Destiny.
imagine
Destiny was like that.
right. So I'd imagine that it'll unlock those for the whatever story they have planned or whatever. But yeah, it's just like it feels like I'm playing a game both now, like it's very well made, it's very modern, like there's a whole storyline with Parvati is like there's a whole storyline of getting her a date with this woman that you meet on one of the space stations, so you're like going to all of these different places to find her like food for this date and special soap and a dress. But you also get into whole conversations with her about the fact that she's asexual. And so like she has all of these like fears, like she's gotten into relationships before and she didn't get really physically intimate, and people started to think that she was cold and distant, and that's not true. She just doesn't like to do this or that. And like get into the whole deep thing with her, which is amazing, a thing you never would have seen 15 years ago in games.
Awesome.
But at the same time, it feels like I'm playing like the next Fallout game from 15 years ago. Like get rid of Fallout 76 definitely. Get rid of Fallout 4. Like this is the game that feels like it should have come after New Vegas. And so like I get this great feeling from playing it. It's like, oh, I don't have 1,000. There's like a bunch of side missions to do, but there aren't 1,000 things on a map for me to go clear.
Yeah.
Like you just do a mission and the mission takes you to a place on the map and then you come back and there's a bunch of stuff on that. There's like a bunch of locations on the map, but there's not like, it's not like I go up a watchtower and open up 80,000 things on a map that I then have to clear off of it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can just go do the game and the game will take me places to go enjoy it. It's like, oh, this feels so good.
Yeah.
It feels so good to just play this game and enjoy playing the game part. Oh,
that's good.
So yeah,
Good.
Outer Worlds, highly recommend.
And your character's customizable, which I love.
Yes, it is first person, so you only ever see them in a menu, which sucks, but whatever. Yeah, I've been running around with a very nice suit on. I found a top hat that I put on one of my companions. It just says nice hat when you find it.
Oh,
It doesn't do very much, but I put it on them anyway. It's like you can get all these different armor customizations, and there's like items out the ass that are like so convoluted that you can just kind of ignore, because really it's like there's like 8 different items, all of which do the same thing, but they're different items because they're all owned by different companies. So it's like the company's version of this is in your inventory. So your inventory gets a little crowded and there's like a budget, but at some point you
Is
just
there a
realize,
bag cap?
no,
Oh, nice.
there's not. And you can sell stuff like crazy and you can break it all down. So I've got more armor and weapon parts than I will ever need, and I've got like more items than I'll ever need. And quite frankly, I've juiced everybody up to this point that it doesn't matter what armor I put on them. We're getting through every fight, no problem.
Yeah.
So like I just don't think about that. So instead of just like, oh yeah, cool, your outfit's awesome, you're good. I'm wearing this nice suit I found. That's cool. Put on this nice set of like this nice visor we found. Everything's great.
I need to be honest, is that you keep explaining stuff within this game, and I think I've mentioned it before, but like all I think of is me with Pirates 101 and Wizards 101, because like that was really my introduction to open world games and like customizable characters and
Oh yeah.
whatnot. And you being like, oh, you have companions. That was a big thing in Pirates 101 that I freaking loved, because you basically like built a crew of pirates and were running around dressed as pirates, and like you could have people in you could be in ridiculous outfits, and you could change, like you level them up, and as you level them up, their outfit changes to be more ridiculous and great. But yeah, that's all I can think of right now.
And that's basically what it is. I mean, that's it. Like that.
But, like,
That's just
even-
like you just juice all yourself up. There's an
Yeah.
option. It's called Tinker, which literally means spend some money and make your stuff more powerful. So it's
Yeah.
like, cool, I
Yep.
found the stuff I like. I'm just gonna spend the money because I'm making more money than I need right now.
Mhm.
So why don't I just spend the money to make the stuff I like more powerful?
Yep, definitely, yeah. And well, you explained the side missions of like, yeah, there's basically missions, but you don't have to break your neck trying to finish them, and that's also the 101 games, especially Pirates 101. And it's like, oh, cool, I can go to this one area and take care of 3 quests.
And also just like you look at you pull the map up. Map's not big. Like you go into, it's not
Yeah.
open world in the sense that like it's one big map that you're unlocking. It's you go to a planet, there's a space.
Yep.
Go to the next planet, there's a space. And if you open it up, you can see here's some buildings here, here's some buildings here. And guess what? If you do all the missions on the planet, it will probably take you to those buildings, and then it'll take you to these buildings. It'll take you down here, and you don't have to ever worry about not seeing a part of the map.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you're going to get there. So just
getting-
play the game. Don't
getting
worry about like
strong.
don't worry about spending hours and hours of going over every inch of the map to see everything. You're going to see it.
Yep.
Don't worry about it.
strong feelings about the one, like strong feelings that this is basically just a beefed up actual version of a 101 game.
Well, it's because those were taking from old games
Oh,
like
yeah.
the old Fallout games and the old Wasteland games and stuff like that. Whereas just like, oh yeah, you get a group of people together and you just kind of explore and do the missions. Like that's just like basic RPG setup. The thing is that like Bethesda set this weird bar with Skyrim that was like, but what if every single character is on a schedule to go
Yeah,
do a thing?
no.
And what if you on this day they do this and this day they do that? It's like, no, how about we scale back for a second? And what if one character sits in one box and sits there forever?
Yep.
And it doesn't matter when you go and talk to them, you just go and talk to them.
Yeah. I love that. And that's the thing, like, I think that's why I liked, like, the open worldness of Horizon and the open worldness of Spider-Man. And it's like, it really is, you know, you don't have to go to these places at a specific, it will always be there. You don't have to worry. And it's fairly easy to get back to these places.
And that's in a lot of ways, like, I mean, obviously you're creating your own character in this, but it's also a big difference between like, are you playing a third person or like a game where you're playing a character versus a game where you're quote unquote role playing, where the idea is that like if you're role playing, you're gonna go off and do what you want to do. What's the thing that catches your interest? Mm-hmm. And it's like, how about the thing that catches Spider-Man's interest? Because I'm playing Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
So yeah, Outer World. I cannot express enough how much I love this dumb game. Oh, it's so good.
Good.
I just like every time like I start it, like something starts to get kind of long, I was like, you know what? Let me stop the thing I'm doing that I realize I'm getting kind of bored with, and let me just go check like a mission or something, and it'll respark a whole other thing. There's like a whole planet where I had done the thing where I was like, I'm gonna go explore everything. It's like, why am I doing this? I explored everything, and then I went to go do a mission, and I went back to the same 5 areas I had just explored because I was like doing the Skyrim thing of explore it all. And then like I finally got to the end of the actual main mission on that planet, and it was so exciting to do that mission. I was like, this is so much better. I should just do this. Screw this whole like I'm gonna explore everything. I'm just gonna like talk to people and interact with the game instead of like I'm gonna go here and shoot that and
Yeah.
pick up all the stuff I can, because that's fun for a little bit if I'm listening to a podcast. It's boring eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
So oh
That's
man.
cool. That's good. No, I'm very glad to hear that it's good and enjoyable. So yeah.
I dropped a
What?
thing I'm dropped a thing I'm playing with while I fidget. The other thing
It
that I've been doing,
sounded like a crystal. It
it's
sounded like you leveled up, Zach.
it's a flat metal bottle opener. I leveled up to bartender level 2. Uh,
I really hope that that is heard because it's like all your 76th episode, Zach leveled up.
and like Skyrim, it took forever.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've been doing is, oh man, I'm an episode and a half away from the end of Daybreak.
Ah, yes.
This
I did not
wonderful.
watch an episode. I told you I would try to watch an episode. I did not.
It's fine. It's just like
I was
it's
watching
fine
other
because
things.
Here's the thing. It's hard to pitch Daybreak, especially because the first 2 episodes are not the best part of Daybreak, but you have to get through them so you can get the setup for the rest
Yeah.
of it. Because it's
Every time I log in, it seems interesting. Every time I log into
It's-
Netflix, it seems like an interesting show.
it's like Ferris Bueller and Fast Times at Ridgemont High for millennials, but post-apocalyptic. Because it's in a world where nukes have gone off and all of the adults have turned into what they call ghoulies. I mean zombies, but what they
Yeah.
call ghoulies. Because they're not quite zombies, it's that they've mutated. They haven't
Yeah.
like died and resurrected. They've just mutated, but all of the adults mutate and the kids don't.
Yeah.
And so it's like and like that's one of the big mysteries of the whole thing is why are the kids okay and the adults aren't and all this stuff. But the reason I mentioned Ferris Bueller, one, Matthew Broderick's their fucking principal,
Nice.
and like it's and like the
I
whole
did
thing is
see
doing
him.
like the whole thing is doing like flashbacks the whole time and stuff, so you see him a lot. It's
Yeah.
so good. It's so funny because it's like so obvious in the first 2 episodes that they're aping Ferris Bueller, and he just like goes to the principal and it's fucking Matthew Broderick.
Oh my god. That's great.
But it's like it's like if Matthew Broderick's character from Election had to play one of the adults in Ferris Bueller. It's a very weird mix. But like, because it like opens up and you're with this one kid who's explaining the whole like post-apocalyptic thing, and he's like this C student who never really fit in with people, and he's talking to the camera the whole time, and he's doing the whole thing. They're flashing back and forth, but then like on the 3rd episode they do the whole, hey, what if a different character talked to the audience, and then you realize that's actually the next like 5 episodes, and they don't come back to the main character talking to the camera until the very end.
Nice.
Which is like, oh, good. So you actually get different character perspective. It's just that the first 2 episodes are set up, so you have to deal with this kid who's kind of a knob for the whole opening, because he's a very bad knockoff of Ferris Bueller, and it's like very obvious. And as the series goes on, you realize like that's the point, is that he's not like chill Ferris Bueller type. He just like
God.
he's the only one that you were talking to, so he got to kind of tell you who he was, and then everyone else was like, no, don't. Josh is not this guy. Hold on, we have to talk about who Josh really is, kind of thing. So it's so
Yep.
it is a
That
show
sounds like
that every 10 minutes makes me go, that was great, or what the fuck am I doing
Yeah.
watching this show?
yeah.
Because it does the same, it does the thing of like, everybody talks like adults think Gen Z millennials talk, and
Yeah.
I don't know how real that is. Like, I don't know what the age of the people that are directing and writing this thing, so I don't know how close to the age of these characters they are to
Mm-hmm.
know how true that is. So I spend half the time going, is that really how kids would talk?
See, I need
But
to
then when
watch
you
it
but
because
then when you buy into it, you just buy into it. It's like, okay, fine. It just is what it is. Like, this is going to be the series. We might as well just buy into it and be
yeah.
okay with it. Then you start to realize other things, like you start to notice the references from the, which is when I started to peg the ages of the writers, is that, oh, these are like 90s and early 2000s people, because there's a character named Angelica, like
Oh
Rugrats,
my god.
and she is a 10-year-old, and she is, horrific. And then there's the one of the main characters, a girl named, this is not a joke,
Oh my god.
Sam Dean, literally the brothers from Supernatural.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
That's what, see what I mean when I say, like, okay, yeah, I get where you're coming from, and also why the fuck did you do that? Like, that's that feeling we're all feeling right now.
All I
It's how
think.
you feel when you watch the show.
Here's the thing, though. All I think of is like there was a post a while ago where it was like a teacher or whatever, and they were doing roll call, and one of their students was named Sora, and they were like,
Oh.
"We've come to the time. We've come to that time where children are going to be
I mean, that's the
named
thing.
after these things from
Supernatural.
our childhood."
Supernatural's a 15-year-old show.
Yeah.
People who were 15 when
Oh,
that
yeah.
show started are my age now, because I was 15 when Supernatural started.
Yeah.
Supernatural and the last 5 seasons of Smallville overlap. So,
I mean, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's funny.
yeah, it's just so weird. It's like it's one of those things where I also, like, I haven't looked it up. No doubt in my mind this is based on a book somewhere, because it reads like, because it also sounds like the sort of thing where someone sat down and, like, this is their first, like, young adult novel.
Yeah.
And they're writing like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I referenced literally everything?
Literally everything.
But then Marissa shows up in the 4th episode and it's great. So, as oh, again, another show, like, just much like Outer Worlds, like, I could talk about, like, dumb shit that happens throughout the series. That's awesome. But then there's also, I have to add on all this other shit that happens in this series that I'm like, ugh. But also that dumb thing happened, where it's like, where it's like they, at some point, someone uses the word retard, and I'm like, oh, that hits me wrong. Also, I know for a fact that working with people who are 10 years younger than me, that is a word that still gets used very often in a weird way. Thought it was a word we all moved past, but there it is. So, like, I have to accept that that's in this show, and that some people watching it might not find it as weird as I do.
Yeah.
And, like, it plays in stereotypes, but it's one of those things where I don't know if we're playing in stereotypes in the good way or the bad way, where someone's like, yeah, no, we use the stereotypes to point out a thing, or if someone's like, oh yeah, I use the stereotypes because I watched a lot of 80s and 90s movies with stereotypes in them, and that's just how teen things are. It's like, those are two very different things, my man. So, like,
Damn.
yeah. But then Matthew Broderick is a post-apocalyptic wasteland cannibal, and you're like, okay, I have to be in this now. I have to know what's going on in this series.
Yeah. Oh.
And then they do things like they swear. I don't know what age group the show is for. That's the other thing I think is throwing me off about this, is that, like, I mean, it's for 13 to 17-year-olds, and I know that John Green wrote what's the thing with Alaska that got banned, like, immediately because sex and pot are in this book.
I don't know.
Like, half of John Green's books have been banned by super conservative high schools all over the country because he writes about kids, being kids. So it's not a thing. This is also, I'm old. I think I might be old because, like, I watched it and I was like, who is this for? Because they're all 17-year-olds. And I watched R-rated movies with 17-year-olds who swore a bunch.
Yeah.
And still, every time they swear all the time, I go, but who's going to let their kids watch this?
Okay, but think about when you were 17. You were swearing.
I know.
Swearing.
And then it's like, but then it's also, like, super bloody. Like, The first episode, he chops into a guy's hand because he's trying to chop his middle finger off because he thought it would look cool, and he misses, and he gets a sword wedged into the kid's hand instead. And it's like a 20-minute gag of the sword stuck in this kid's hand while he fights off other kids.
Oh my gosh.
And so
I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's
what
for
am I watching?
it is campy. It sounds campy, and it's for people who like, shows like Walking Dead.
Yeah,
But
it's
want
like, yeah, I guess because it's like
humor.
Shaun of the Dead level violence,
Yeah,
but like 20 years younger than
it's
most of the characters in Shaun of the Dead.
yeah. It's just supposed to. I think it maybe is just trying to imitate that stuff, and it's like
Yeah,
we
and
just want
I
to
like
have fun too.
and that's
It's
the other thing
also
that I like it. I like that there would be a show for kids
yeah.
like this. It's just hard for me to conceive that there would be a show for kids like this.
I mean, it makes 100%. And again, I'm going to use my term, but it is a post Fortnite world. Like, that does not surprise me in the least.
Yeah, but like a big thing about Fortnite is that there's no blood in Fortnite.
Yeah, but
Like
still,
you don't see people bleed, or like you see like fireworks explode. It's not like you see
Yeah.
like characters getting fucking like gibbed with like body parts splurting all over
Yeah.
the place.
But think about the other games that you do have that in.
No, you're
that-
absolutely right. There was a big thing. I'm gonna take it real far back. Star Trek Discovery. Talk about real going back to the beginning of this show. I don't know if it's twice in the first season or if it's once in the first season or once in the second, but they swear on Discovery.
Yeah.
There is one episode where someone says "fuck yes." There's another episode where someone's like, "Oh, I don't need to worry about that shit" or something. And it was so funny to watch the Star Trek community try and decide if they were okay with swearing in Star Trek. And I remember hearing that and thinking, you guys realize that the show, we're 20 years on from the last Star Trek show. People swear now like relatively normal. And I like, because it was adults, my brain was like, yeah, they're adults. They swear, it happens. But for some reason, when I watched the show with kids, and I'm like, who's letting their kids watch this?
Well, okay, but it's
Why
also,
am I this person?
but it's also a Netflix show. It's not like you're
Yeah.
watching the Disney Channel
That's
and kids
true.
are swearing.
But I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that I think that's the thing that confused me. Like, I still think about the like, what if your parents walk in and find you watching the thing, like mentality of when TV was prominent. So it's like, oh, I couldn't watch South Park when with my parents because at some point they would walk in the room and be like, oh, I can't believe they said that. Look at those little children saying those things coming out of their mouth. And like, so like, that's all I could think of with this is like obviously 17-year-olds, someone who's anywhere from like 12 to 18 is going to put that on. And all I can think of is like a parent walking in the room and be like, what you watching? Why is that person bleeding? Why are they saying the F word every 5 seconds? Holy crap. They're throwing water balloons full of blood at each other. What's going on?
You and I think of very different things.
I know. That's why the show is good. So,
Well, yeah, because like you say all that stuff and it does not faze me. Like I don't.
it's a thing that's like, it's weird because like I've been
doesn't-
watching the show and I've been enjoying it. It doesn't faze me personally. It confuses me on a
confuses you?
cultural level.
Interesting. I don't know. Like I've been watching Derry Girls, and they're in Catholic school or Protestants. They're in religious school. I don't know. And they're like swearing and doing all this, and they're teenagers, and
Right.
they're
but
going
there's,
to
like,
parties and swearing and smoking and having sex and digging up dead dogs that aren't actually dead. Spoilers for episode 3 of Derry Girls. But yeah, like,
You know
and
what
I'm
really-
just like, this is their world. That's fine.
Yes. And here's the thing about that is that like obviously like
It's also Irish, but
Yeah,
like, it
I
doesn't.
mean, that's the thing,
but
though.
it doesn't matter.
no,
That's
there
what
are
kids
there are
are.
shows that come out. There are shows that come out where you go, okay, this is the show that's gonna be real and raw, like Skins, both the American and the original British
Yeah.
version. Was like a thing that was like, oh, we're gonna have teenagers talking about sex on TV, and that's gonna blow people's mind because it doesn't happen. And so like there's shows that are set up to be that show. So I think it's the fact that this is a show that's just like, oh, it's the post-apocalypse. Sometimes people die, which is a thing that like, duh. But also I'm like, but like kids show, that person's hand got chopped off. Kids are dropping other kids into spikes. Like people are like, it's like a thing that's just like, it blows my mind of the idea. I don't know what it is because I watch Riverdale
Well,
and Riverdale doesn't bother me this way.
you also keep, and they are, here's the thing, you also keep saying kids, right? And,
Yes.
and you're not wrong. They are kids in a sense, but every time you say kids show, all I think of is like toddlers.
Right.
And that's not what it is.
And you know what it is? And I think the other thing is this. The kids on this show don't look 30 the way that the kids on Riverdale and other teen shows look 30. They
Yeah.
look, I don't
Like
know,
teenagers?
15 to 20, like the people on Disney shows. Like that's the other thing is that these look like Disney-aged kids show teens
Your
doing
brain
this
just can't handle it, and that's
versus
fine.
it's like if the kids in High School Musical also chopped off each other's heads sometimes because like they were actual teenagers making that movie versus like Glee where they were all 25 to 30 and people were like, why are you in Rolling Stone doing like a sexy photo shoot? It's like, because I'm 28 and I'm a fucking adult, as opposed to like High School Musical. It's like, yeah, I'm 18 and so I'm going to do the wholesome thing. We're the Jonas Brothers. We're going to have purity rings and we're going to take like purity promises. And then like and so like this whole thing like I think that's the other thing that blows my mind is like it looks like actual teenagers doing this. Is like I can't conceive of that either.
It's also very funny to me because like I never see age in television shows or in movies.
I didn't for
And,
a very
like,
long time
you
until
have
one day I
brought
had
it
to
up-
look it up for something.
You have brought it up so many times lately, and it's just like, this is hilarious to me. Because you were bringing up something else where you, like sitcoms or whatever. You don't know who sitcoms are being made for anymore, right? That was...
Yes,
yeah.
yes, that was me.
Because you were like, it's about old people doing young stuff. Who are these shows made
That's
for?
not even old people. No. Yeah. It wasn't about old people doing young stuff. It was about old people doing age-appropriate stuff versus getting 30-year-olds to play 22-year-olds and doing young stuff.
See, I
have
don't
very
know.
specific things in my brain.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's fine. I'm okay with it. It's great. But I have a very hard time when it comes to age. I'm just gonna, like, I look at people, that, you know that whole game where people, that I don't understand, where people are like, guess how old I am? And I'm like, I couldn't tell you.
I want to say that's not a game, but also I did just do this with the two people I work with on Saturday nights at the hotel, where they were like, how old am I? And I was like, I would have said like 23. They're like, we're both 19. Neither of us is drinking age. And I was like, shit.
That's bad because of your occupation.
I would have ID'd them
Yeah,
if
I know,
was
but
giving them
still.
drinks.
But still,
yeah.
Zach.
No,
I'm so bad about ages. I'm so bad about age. And like you being like, it's these kids swearing, and I'm like, and?
No, I mean, and that's just it. It's like it was a thing that like in it's a very weird setup of when I'm gonna just old man this real hard right now.
Use your
When
old
I
man
was a
voice.
kid, when I was a kid watching TV, most of the shows like 90210 and Party of Five, and even like you get to things like Buffy and Smallville, like Tom Welling was playing a 15-year-old and he was like 23 and was like humongous. There are jokes on the Smallville podcast I listened to about the fact that they never showed them in school because they were afraid to put Tom Welling at a desk and realize the fact that he's like 7 feet tall and would never pass as a high schooler if you put him in an actual classroom. There was a thing for years where you did, and Glee, like not a joke, Glee was part of this,
Oh, yeah.
where like you
High
had
School
adults.
Musical was that too.
You had adults playing kids because you needed the kids to do things like, we're going to do the episode where they have sex, and you can't do that with minors. So
Yeah.
but I think there was also a shift at some point where people started to like not buy into that as much anymore. Like it became a joke that like Luke Perry was a 40-year-old on Beverly Hills. It's like he wasn't. He was 30, but he wasn't a 40-year-old. But like that became a joke to the point where like it became the norm, especially when Disney started to get into the game and Nickelodeon started to get into the game of getting like age appropriate or at least closer to age appropriate kids on their shows because they also weren't dealing with most of that stuff. And if they were, they weren't going anywhere near as graphic. So they could afford to actually have like 17-year-olds on their show versus 23-year-olds.
You know, the closest thing I think I can mention on this line of like age appropriate, whatever age appropriate, is okay. This is gonna be weird, but there was a shift in like the Nickelodeon and Disney shows that I was watching. Not so much in the early 2000s where it was like That's So Raven and Lizzie McGuire and all that, but in more in like middle school, high school range, like with it's mainly iCarly and like Victorious, and Sweet Life on Deck, like those shows. Yeah, that was my childhood. That was my teenager years, whatever.
Yeah, you're
But
stretching into the shows that I knew existed but didn't watch.
never watched,
But
right?
yeah,
Just like you were mentioning shows that I knew existed but I've never watched. But like there was this shift where clothing became this thing where I was like, this seems weird to me, because to me it was clothing that was meant for much older people, and by much older I mean like mid 20, like 20 to 30 year olds.
Yeah, the
No,
ancient 25-year-old.
no, and I'm 25 right now. And 25 and 30 is not old, but I'm saying like when I was in high school, I was like, okay, someone my age should not be wearing those kind of heels because they're too big. You're gonna fall. Like, it just scares me. And it got to this point in like iCarly where Sam and Carly started dressing older than I thought they were, and it tripped my mind up a little bit. But it took me like 2 episodes to get used to it, and then I was like, actually, their style's pretty awesome, and it fits their characters more than what they were wearing. And it does show that they are becoming like seniors in high school, and they are about to become adults, even though they are already adults in real life, but they're about to become adults. So like, it took me a little bit to adjust because I wasn't at that stage in my life yet, but it was like, okay, no, this does make sense in the world of the show, but that's the closest thing I can say has ever tripped me up as far as aging goes.
You know what I want to blame? Here's what I'm going to blame. Here's the thing, because I watched it more, because I realized more and more, and I need to go back and rewatch it. I watched it more than I think any other show, like in a consistent setting than anything else, and that's Boy Meets World.
Okay.
Because Boy Meets World starts with them in middle school, into high school, and into college.
Yep.
But it is following the ages of those characters like to a T. Like every year,
Yeah.
they're growing up to another grade. They're going to another school if they need to. They're going to college. And so I think what happened was watching that more than anything else, my brain was like, okay, this is what it's like to watch teenagers grow up on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I set the rest of my brain around for like watching. So like my brain didn't like that my brain I don't think my brain clocked when other characters were like slightly older or slightly younger or whatever, because I was just like, okay, like they kind of look like those ages that the Boy Meets World's characters looked like at the time, so I'm just not going to think any deeper than that.
Yeah.
And like that was like my grounding state as I watched through them. But anyway.
But yeah, I don't know, and it's this thing where too, you know, I just was explaining the iCarly stuff, but it's like it also just became, it like normalized it in a lot of ways, at least for me, where it's like, no, when you hit a certain age, yeah, you're gonna start dressing differently, and it's gonna be fine. Like, that's how it is. It, like, normalized age for me in a lot of ways. Where I'm like, oh, age doesn't really... Like, there are certain things about age that don't matter. Like, it doesn't... You know? I don't know
There's
how... It normalized a lot of stuff for me. And I think that's also why I can't and don't really recognize age. Like, I couldn't tell you how old the girls are in Derry Girls, because they do hold themselves in this very mature way, and yet they're still teenagers and still think as teenagers, but it feels like if I had to give them an age, it feels like I am watching 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds, but they're still in high school. Like, they're not in university yet. And it's this thing, and really, they could be in the younger years, but I think the latest episode said they were seniors. So, but it does, like, I couldn't tell you, and it is just because these are just kids, these are just teenagers living their lives how they're gonna live their lives, and they can hold themselves to a higher standard and act older than they are, and that's fine, because in a lot of ways, that was me. Like, I generally act older and, like, think in older ways because of, and, like, that's very evident in my music taste and my movie taste and all of that, and just knowledge that I have. But then I can turn around and be like, yeah, Pokemon. Like, I love fucking Pokemon, you know, and still have that childhood aspect mixed with it. So it's just, I don't know, it's weird. This is not what I expected to talk about.
Oh, I know it's not.
Like,
You know what's going to be really funny? Like, we could move on to...
It segues into Jojo Rabbit pretty well.
It does, because all I can think of is that I guarantee you that I would sit down and watch that movie, and my brain would not be as confused as when I'm watching Daybreak.
Probably not. But no, all I'm trying to say is, like, for me, when I'm watching TV or watching a movie, age never really plays a factor in my brain unless I am specifically told someone's age. Unless they're like Dragon Prince. I started watching Dragon Prince again because I just want to watch it.
Coming.
Yeah.
We got that season 3 trailer. It's coming, baby. We're going to watch it. We're going to love it.
I started watching Dragon Prince again specifically, like, within the timeline of last episode of season 2. One day, and then the next day I can start watching season 3. Like, I have planned it out to watch a episode a day to get ready for that show.
Season 4 of fucking She-Ra dropped today, and
yeah,
I'm still on season 2.
Oh
my god.
Season 1, are you kidding me? But that's the thing, like, in Dragon Prince, it is specifically said that Callum is 14 and, like, 3/4. And that, if you tell me how old someone is, it's important. If you don't tell me how old someone is, I don't give a shit. You know? It's kind of that mentality that I have. But Jojo Rabbit was a pretty great movie.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. I want you to know, by the way, that I have been sitting here tense because I just want it to be good. I love Taika Waititi so much, and I just want him to do good things. Like, at some point, he's going to do a thing I'm not, like, super into, and I'm going to have to deal with that. But I wanted this one specifically to be good because it's the first, like, it's one of the first, like Nazi satires we've had since, like, recent political events, and also, like, I want to hold it up to, like, producers, and it's making fun of Hitler and the Nazis.
Yep.
So tell me about Jojo Rabbit.
So it's really, really good. And I went into it not knowing a thing. I knew maybe 3 things about this movie, and that was, it was about Hitler. Didn't know what it was about, really. I didn't know. I wasn't sure if it was a satire. I kind of felt like it was going to be a satire based on certain things I was seeing
I have
and
seen
reading.
I've seen one
but
trailer, and I want to tell you. So when you get to the end of your thing, I'm going to tell you what I think that movie is about, and then you can tell
yeah,
me if I'm right.
that's fine.
Like I love when we play this game. Okay.
This should be our game corner.
This is like Rocket.
This
This
should
is like
be...
Rocket Man again. I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell you what I
exactly.
think this movie is. Yeah.
But no, it really is. So I knew that it was gonna be about like either a satire or whatever. I knew Taika Waititi was in it and directed it and wrote it, and I knew that he was playing Hitler. And I knew Rebel Wilson was in it. That is
I always forget
all
that
I
Rebel
knew.
Wilson is in this movie.
Yeah, that's
Ugh.
literally all I was going into this movie with.
Okay, so I had seen one trailer, and I must have at some point read a description of this movie somewhere because I remember watching the trailer and thinking, like, I thought a different idea, or like, oh, that didn't address a different thing that I thought this movie was, which means I must have read somewhere what I thought this movie was. So, what I thought this movie was that Hitler is his imaginary friend, and that the whole idea of it being called Jojo Rabbit was a reference to Harvey, the oh god, Jimmy Stewart movie, where he's got the rabbit as as an imaginary best friend. So like I didn't know anything else about the story of it. I just thought it was like a kid, and like from the trailer I got like it's a kid in the Hitler Youth, but it's like a kid in the Hitler Youth where Hitler is his like imaginary friend. Other than that, I got nothing. But that's what I thought this movie was like a story about a kid who's in the Hitler Youth and Hitler is his imaginary friend, and then watching the trailer going, oh, and it's a goofy version of Hitler because a kid made him up.
Yep.
Like, yeah. So other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah, well, that's half of it.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Cool.
There is a whole other movie.
Other half of that movie going on?
Yeah, there's a whole other movie going on, and it's heartbreaking, and it's like heartwarming in a lot of times too. And Devin, I saw it with Devin and our mom, and like there were just times where it was breathtaking. Like there were times where you couldn't, like all three of us were holding our breath. Like it was quite literally a roller coaster of emotions. And I know that is like the clichéest of all cliches, but it was.
Cliches exist for a reason.
Exactly. So nice. But it was this really nice, sad, good, happy in a lot of senses too. Funny and dramatic movie. And it really is painted, like I said, I've never seen a trailer, but apparently it was kind of painted as a comedy. But it is much
it was painted
more
and I think
as a drama.
And I think a lot of that has to do with one, Taika Waititi in general tends to get. It's funny because I think his stuff tends to have more dramatic stuff to it, but the comedy is what sells him.
Yes.
And because Hunt for the Wilder People did the same thing. Have you ever seen Hunt for the Wilder People? It's fucking goddamn fantastic, and I'm gonna watch it again. Sam Neill. Oh, and the little kid, it's so good. It's like a little kid is in the foster program, and when he gets sent to this family, it's these two older people, and then he gets out, like lost out in the woods with like Sam Neill, who is the husband in this, who doesn't want anything to do with him. It was like his wife's idea to be part of the foster program. So he goes running off into the woods, and Sam Neill is like stuck with him out there, and then they get lost coming back. And so it's their whole journey to come back, and you've got like social services like hunting for them, and they're like out in the wild, doing all this shit. But like the kid's like, it's the kid from Deadpool 2.
Oh,
like
okay.
that's where he got his start, was Hunt for the Wilder People was like his first big role. So it's him and Sam Neill like doing like buddy comedy bullshit out in the woods as they're like lost, and they have like their big dramatic moments about the kid in foster care and like Sam Neill as an old man, all this stuff. It's so good. It's so very, very good. It's like a whole scene where they come up to a cabin and the kid is like, oh yeah, no, he kidnapped me, he's a pedophile. It's like, what? I'm not. What are you talking about? Yeah, no, don't take him away. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop making this whole thing. It's so good. So like, that's what he does, is that he has really, really funny shit, and then really, really dramatic shit.
Yes, yeah. Well, it cuts it, and it cuts it the perfect amount. and that if you want to balance comedy and drama, it's what you need. You can't have funny parts going on for like 20 minutes and then hit us with a dramatic part. No,
I mean, Adam Sandler's tried, and he's
yes.
kind of come close with Click. Otherwise, he's failed.
Yeah,
So...
because it's really like you need that balance. You need to be able to be crying, and then while you're crying, be able to laugh. Because it's gonna bring you down, but it can just as quickly bring you back up. And that happens in this and I don't want to give you too much away. I don't want to give too much away, but because I think it really, like, you should not see another trailer. If you
No, I didn't watch it. Like, I saw that trailer,
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, no. Like, I was like, okay, cool. This looks like Taika Waititi doing something dumb with Nazis.
Yep.
I'm fine. I'm into it. Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
Of course I have.
Yeah, because that was also like written by him.
Yes.
Like that was written and directed by him.
Yes.
And then I haven't seen the series yet, but the series is supposed to be also excellent.
It is.
Have
I not talked about What We Do in the Shadows on the show yet?
Not the TV series. No.
I haven't talked about. Have I talked about the
I've
movie?
seen the movie. I've seen the movie. So
I know.
no,
We've
neither
never
of us
talked
brought it up.
Oh my god,
It's fucking
I
fantastic.
love it. I love that movie, and I love the series.
Were you
like,
aware,
it is
by the way?
incredible.
I don't know if it's still. It might not exist anymore, but there was a time where he was going to do a sequel to that. That was
of course.
Werewolves.
Yep.
Was going to be. Yeah, I don't know if he's still up to that, but he's literally the only reason I'm going to get Disney Plus, because I want to watch The Mandalorian because Taika Waititi's the showrunner. That's the only reason I'm going to touch Disney Plus.
Nice.
But
no,
yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is fucking fantastic.
It
And
is.
again, it's another one that's like, it's like, oh yeah, here's a bunch of goofy bullshit about being a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh yeah, also our jokes are going to say really depressing shit about being vampires sometimes.
Exactly. But it is that he is able to balance his movie. Everything I've seen of his, like, this like perfect little balancing act going on. And also talk about not really knowing how old people are. in this, I mean, I could not tell you. And it might be mentioned. He might be 10. I think he's 10. He is 10 because
it's one of those things. It's one of those things where you think I would know enough in my life to know how old the Hitler Youth were.
Yeah,
I don't.
No,
So,
there was definitely a scene where he's 10. Like, it's very evident, and they say that you're a 10-year-old. And I thought of the joke of, you could go out on your Pokemon adventure now, little kid. And yeah,
dear God.
So that's it all comes back, Zach.
So
No.
this is a weird thing. Just out of very quick sidebar, and this might be. Actually, I should check something on IMDb. So I've been Googling while we're talking because I can do two things at once. Well, it was of Taika Waititi, if that helps. But I'm on the page for the kid, Roman Griffin Davis, who's in Jojo Rabbit, and I was trying to find his actual age, and that is not posted on IMDb. And I don't know if that's because he's a minor or if that's because IMDb changed their shit. So
could be. But but there's other characters in it where I'm like, right now I could not really tell you how old they were. And if it was said, I forgot, because it doesn't really matter. It's just, it seems like it is all very young people within this war, and that's also hard to watch. Like, there are jokes, and this is not giving away too much away, but there are jokes about, like, children fighting with guns and, like, going out and killing people, and they're 11.
Yeah, surprise everybody. It was bad to be in the Hitler Youth in the 1940s.
Good.
Like,
No. But it was, and, like, those were the moments that, like, really put it into perspective of, like, what was going on at that time. But yeah, it was really good. It was really, really good. And I
am glad to hear that. I am going to seek it out then.
Yeah.
I really want it. That's one of those things, like, talk about precarious moments where it's just like, oh, I hope you did this right, because this can go bad real quick if you don't do this right.
Yeah. And I'm sure it does go bad. I'm sure it will go bad. I don't know. I'm sure like people will look at it and be like, "Oh, you went a little far there," but
Right, but
I'm
I mean,
not a
like,
person to judge that.
yes, and
Uh,
so far from what I have heard, like I have heard there like the worst review I have heard of this movie is that maybe it wasn't as funny as they thought it would be,
mm,
which makes me think that that's someone who again was going into it thinking it would be like a comedy,
yeah.
like thinking of the producers, like they were going to go in thinking it was going to be another producers as opposed to what it was actually going to do.
Well, and
So like,
that's a problem with trailers in general,
oh
is
yeah,
that because like you sell your movie on it being a comedy, that's what people are expecting to see, and then you hit them with dramatic moments and like fucking heartbreaking moments, and that's not what people want. That's not what they want, because that's
there's
not what the trailer sold them. It's
there's
it's what happened with Jexy too.
I was about to
It's
say, there's times when you go in looking for her, and then there's times when you go in looking for Jexy, and you get confused when Jexy
exactly.
is a better version of her.
Yes, and it really is. But this is another movie where it's like I went in with no expectations. I went in not knowing anything, and I came out being like, "Oh shit, that was a good movie. That was a great balance of comedy and drama." Like, oh damn. But I have a feeling if I saw a trailer, maybe, I have a feeling if I saw the trailer, I still would be happy that it wasn't just all jokes.
Yeah,
But
like
I
I
can
think
totally see how someone would see the trailer for this and equally see the trailer for like Jexy or something and be like, I expected nothing but jokes and you gave me this.
right,
And
like
it's like,
I personally
how can you
know,
be upset with that?
right, and I
Give you
know
a
that I
better movie.
personally am someone that like at this point in my life, like dumb straight comedy, with a few exceptions, I don't generally go for dumb straight comedy anymore.
Mm,
That's just me. So like going into any movie and finding out that there's deeper shit to it than just
yeah,
dumb straight comedy is probably going to make me happier.
yeah.
But I also totally understand when someone is like, I just want to shut my brain off and laugh at a
Oh
thing.
yeah,
Don't make me think about the thing, man.
yeah.
What are you doing?
But that's the
I
thing.
also I also don't think that you should do that with Nazi comedy
No.
in general. I
Mm.
don't think anyone should go into Nazi comedy thinking I just want to shut my brain
No,
off.
no, no,
That's a
no,
whole other
no.
conversation.
But
But
it
yeah,
is.
like Jexy, like I could see someone going to Jexy and being like, I thought I was getting something else out of this, man. Just give me a minute
Yeah.
to readjust.
Yeah. But that's the thing, that it's this thing with trailers where it's bad. Like it's not good to sell your movie this way and then not give it that way. But that's the problem with trailers in general, is that if you were to actually show a trailer about and showcase some of the more dramatic parts of this movie, you'd ruin your movie.
Right. I mean, that's
Like
the thing is it's like the
it's this
surprise of that gut punch really
yeah.
is part of it.
Like
Yeah.
that's the problem when it comes to trailers, and it's like this problem that not many people seem to get. And it's like and people question me why I don't watch trailers and why I wait until I am forced to watch a trailer in a theater. And it's like I have seen too many movies. Like I have seen so many movies that there are things in trailers where if I see like one glimpse of something, it will make my brain think and it will give away the movie to me. And it's how my brain works. It's how it works for me, and it's just that's why I try to stay away. Unless I am forced to watch it in a theater. But yeah, go see Jojo Rabbit. Go play Outer Worlds.
Go watch Daybreak. Give it
Go watch
4
Derry
episodes.
Girls.
Give it the Devin Decker 4 episodes because you need to get past those first 2, and then the second 2 switch perspectives, and the RZA shows up, and everything's cool.
Go
So,
watch Back to the Future.
oh yes, absolutely. Don't watch Endgame if you're bought in, like I was.
Yeah.
Also, before we
Dragon
wrap up,
Prince.
Devin, I know you're watch Dragon Prince. Devin, you're screaming at me right now. Yes, Jon Favreau is the showrunner on The Mandalorian. Taika Waititi just directed like at least one episode. Like before I'm just correcting that now. I realized what I said. Anyway. I mean, the
Anyways.
good surprise is when you find out at the end that Taika Waititi's been in the Mandalorian armor the whole time.
Oh my
That's a whole
God.
other story. That's Dale. We'll have to talk about that. That whole thing is based on a whole story,
Oh, I know.
like old extended universe story where you don't know there's a reason they haven't
Yeah.
told you who the Mandalorian is yet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We talked about it. We talked
Yeah.
about it on an episode.
it could be Taika Waititi. It could be a woman. It could be
Yeah.
anybody. That's
Yeah.
the best part. I hope they never say. I hope the end of that series. I hope literally the last scene of that series is that they go to take the helmet off, and as they take the helmet off, the credits roll. I fucking
That'd be great. It'd be
that would be
incredible.
fucking amazing.
Oh man. But this is
Oh,
where I think
you
we're
know-
gonna end the episode. Oh wait, do you have one
Sorry,
more
I
thing?
just want to say, by the way, the next time we record is the day Disney Plus launches.
Oh God.
It's November 12th. So I don't know what next week's episode looks like.
Well.
I'm gonna have maybe some stuff to say about Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh my God.
I don't know yet.
Well, it'll be 3 days before Pokemon, so you know.
Oh, Death Stranding comes out Friday too.
That's true. That
Throw-
is true.
Throw pea grenades. That's how I've learned that.
I'm done. This is where on pea grenades is where I'm officially ending the episode. This has been Say Report Jr. Everybody. Hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on any of your podcast apps that you use, which is nice that you have variety. You can find us on YouTube if you search Say Report Jr. You can find us on Twitter at Say Report Jr. And you can also find both of us individually. I am at Dale's Brain.
And I am at Zewiski. And also, I'm Guiji. We never talked about Guiji, but we'll talk about that next week.
We did not talk about Kuiji.
I Guiji, therefore I am.
Oh
Bye,
my
everybody.
God.
Let's go get ice cream.
Go get ice cream. Take it away, Liz. What the hell is a gigawatt?
Thank you for listening to The Say Report with your hosts Dale Decker and Zach Sarowik. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.